Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. I'm Wayne Highlander, Director of Sales for Bona Adhesives.
And I'm Rob Johnson from the Bona Training.
How we doing, Rob?
Pretty good. How's it going?
Yeah, nice of you to dress up today.
It's a Bona sweatshirt.
Okay, I see the Bona. Okay.
It's very clean too. It's it's clean.
Oh, good deal.
Yeah.
Well, this podcast today might be all over the place. We were talking about a few different things.
Whoa. This one might be all over the place.
Yeah, I got a feeling.
As compared to
the rest that are all over the place.
The rest of 6 years, 5 years worth of podcasts.
Yep.
Yeah. Buckle up, everybody.
Yeah, so it just occurred to me because I know somebody that was retiring out of the trade, and Rob and I started talking about it. When you in the flooring industry and a lot of entrepreneurs and whatever, and people in the construction industry, when you retire, you quit doing floors. It's not like working at a corporation where you worked at, say, Toyota for 30 years, and at the end of the 30 years, everybody gives you a cake and sits down and congratulates you and gives you a watch or whatever, and there's a lot of fanfare and recognition for all that you've done, and you get a nice send off and what have you. And I know so many people in the flooring industry that have retired or left the industry, and it's not so much. It's, you know what I mean? You just kind of go away. And I think that's kind of sad sometimes. And in a way, it's, and there's two sides to that. And the other side is that, well, there's a lot more freedom, and you're not a corporate structure, and you're not, reporting and punching a clock, and that's the good side of it. But it just occurred to me, I know so many people, and I know everybody probably does, that was doing floors for a long time, and just left the industry, and you kind of don't hear about them anymore. And so I think we wanted to recognize those guys and gals, whoever in that position, and I think that's something that maybe we would talk about first. What do you say, Rob?
Yeah, let's give this a try.
Okay, thanks for your input.
We really have nothing else to do for the next half hour, so
yeah. I was reading something about heroes and heroism and that kind of stuff, and I thought, well, somebody that sacrifices their whole life and career of bringing home a check for their family and everything, and it's a very selfless act to do. That to me is a hero. Man, that's somebody that deserves that recognition. And a true hero, sometimes it always is. In fact, there's a quote that says, true heroism is remarkably sober and undramatic. And I think that's guys that get up every day and go to work and handle the responsibility and are accountable and do for their family. They're freaking heroes in my book, man. And when I see a guy at the counter, a guy who's been in the trade for a long time, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, and I see him at the counter, I can't express how much respect I have for those guys in the industry that do this hard work day in and day out, that a lot of people can't appreciate how, I had someone tell me the other day, he said, you know what? Maybe maybe one day when you retire, he goes, this guy's already tired. He goes, maybe we could flip houses. Like we could make, buy houses and start flipping houses. No, I don't want any part of that.
What was that noise?
That's my new toy, man.
Is that your,
okay.
Buzzer. That's all your, right. That's your version of.
That's yours to yours.
Okay.
So I thought I told him, I said, honestly, man, I have no desire to do that. I said, my body's pretty beat up. I've had a lot of knee surgeries and my shoulders messed up and my back and whatever. And he said, now this is a guy that's not had a physical job his whole life. Okay. He's had a very much not a physical job. And he said, yeah, I've been kind of lucky. My whole life I've been pretty skinny, so I'm in pretty good shape. And I want to say, well, how many you haven't gone to work and spend 8 hours on your knees all day long for days and months at a time. You haven't carried wood and packed wood and swung a hammer for years and years and years, bent over at the waist all day long. And maybe that had a little something to do with it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm not the guy. If that's
How
what
many retirement parties have you ever been to for a floor guy?
Zero.
I was just gonna say, because I mean, when you started talking about this, I'm like, how many retirement parties have I been to for a floor guy? And I could only think of two.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And they were, it wasn't like a 100% floor guy.
Yeah.
Like the first one when we started talking about this was when did you know Bob Burton? Were you around
Absolutely.
with Bob Burton? Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
even if you weren't at Bona when Bob Burton, Bob Burton was a legend.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing his job now. He was a trainer, I'm a trainer. And he actually set a date and retired. And it was during one of our sales meetings. So, Bona took us all out to a really nice steakhouse and gave him a really proper send off, I thought. It was classy. You know what I mean? It was classy and it was a lot of fun. Some people got up there and said some good stories about him and everything. And
Yeah.
I mean, if I was Burton, I would have felt great. That was a really good send off, I thought.
Yes, but that's my point. Two things about that. First of all, that's my point. Is that's not like he wasn't a floor guy. That's not a floor guy send off. He was working at a corporation. You know what I mean? That's a corporation send off, if you're lucky, right? But a floor guy. And then the other thing you said is so funny to me is that he wasn't a 100% floor guy. I love that you said that. Well, we always judge guys like, well, he didn't do this, so he's not, really a floor guy.
You know what I mean? It wasn't that. What I meant by that was he wasn't doing floors 100% of the time.
I know exactly what you meant by that.
Right.
Absolutely, and you're right. But that's my point. You don't see a floor guy a guy that puts his heart and soul into the career in 30 years or 28 years or whatever into this trade and busts his butt and has all this knowledge that he's learned. And then he leaves the trade so often that there's no fanfare for him. There's no, hey man, what a contribution you made. And look at all the work you did. And how many times, you're in this industry, you're a floor man, you're a gunslinger. Every job you go to, you got a new boss, you got new expectations, you have new, whether they're realistic or not, you've got a new set of circumstances, job site, everything, the lighting, subfloor conditions, existing or not, whatever, you have to manage through that and you have to make that work and get paid and go on to the next one. You're a gunslinger. And, and we talk about it so many times, and you could do 100 things right on that job. You can make 100 decisions and one thing can stop a hair in the finish can stop a check. Somebody's thought the brown isn't as brown as I thought it was going to be, can stop a check. And you did that. You put up with that for all them years. I just think that them guys deserves some recognition, and we should give them their the NWFA is doing their 40 under 40 again. You just come out with 40 under 40, and I love it. I like seeing people get recognition. Don't get me wrong, but I often think, and I don't think it's because I'm getting old. I don't think that's the cause. I mean, I had such an appreciation.
Are you sure?
No, I truly.
Are you sure about that? Hey,
100%.
you're just dropping hints.
No, 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 not at all. And the reason I say that is because I felt, when my uncle Stan taught me stuff, and I really appreciated everything I was learning. You know what I mean? And everything I got from him, I truly, truly appreciated it. You know, I really did. So when I see these guys at the distributor, at the counter buying stuff or whatever, I see them on job sites. Man, we just have such an awesome respect for these guys and all that they do. And like I said, I think they're freaking heroes, man. I think they are. I think when you can support your family, especially a business or whatever that you started, and put everything on the line, and you've done it day in and day out, no matter what the conditions are, through different economies, through employees and different things you've had to go through, and all the challenges in doing this business. I just think that it'd be somehow nice if, like, not that these guys are dying, but I don't watch the Oscars so much anymore, but uh, every year they say, "Oh, these are the guys that died." You know what I mean? In 2012, whatever. I
Yeah.
don't think there should be that,
Cue
but
the music. Right.
yeah, but there should be some recognition. Somehow, I wish we gave them some recognition of what they've done for the industry. So anyhow, that's
All right. So how are we going to do this then? Why don't let's do something. How are we going to do this?
I got an idea. Now that I wasn't going to do anything, just talking. But since you said that,
Well, that's what we do best.
yeah. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But since you said that, I mean, we could have something if you want to recognize somebody, you could give us their name or whatever, and we could mention them on the pod. Not only, you know what, you could mention their name, and then some things that they've done, or in their career, or if they've been a mentor, maybe mention that as well. Maybe we could do that, and we'll give them a nice shout out. Maybe we'll send them something too.
All right. You know what? Let's do something like that, but not just how about this? Let's have everybody send us a quick bio.
Yeah.
Where the guy worked, where he was from, how many years he did it. Nothing too crazy,
Yeah.
but a little bio that we could read on air, and tell everybody, hey, because I don't think there's a lot of guys that retire from this.
I don't think there is either. Well, what the hell? What happens to them then? You know what I
They
mean?
die. They die.
Well, there's a couple. There's a couple things.
And when you started talking about this, and wanting to do this show, I really started racking my brains about somebody who just woke up one day and said, "All right, I am retired from the floor business."
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I'm doing schools, when I'm talking to guys, I'm amazed on how many guys will say, "Yeah, do you mind if I bring my dad?" Or my dad would have come, but he felt like working today or something.
Yeah.
And these are guys. This is what I see in our business more than guys dying and more than guys retiring. I see they just work less days.
Okay, you're exactly right.
And just, they'll just, like, I will give you for instance, when I started with the family business, my grandfather had retired. But he was still coming on the jobs. If the job was within, he lived in a town called Stoneham, Mass. It's just outside of Boston. And if it was like under a 2-hour drive where we were working, he would drive there, and it was funny because he'd always show up, black pants, white shirt, tucked in, ready to go, button down collar, white shirt. That's it. And then he would, like, especially now, his oldest grandson is on the crew,
Yeah.
So he would talk to me and, showing me little things here and there, and then, kind of take the machine out of my hand type of thing. And then the next thing you know, the shirt is off. He's back down to his t-shirt,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll never forget. I don't even know where he pulled this out, but he always had a towel around his neck.
Huh.
Always had a towel around, like a sweat towel, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Always had a
yeah.
towel around his neck. I don't even know where the towel would come from. And then he would work, 3 or 4 hours. And I remember my dad and uncle like, Dad, what do you do? And they'd
Yeah.
all just laugh
Yeah.
because, and the more I think about it, and I think the more that guys really don't retire from it, is because they love it.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. I think that is probably what happens to most guys is they don't really retire. They slow down or take smaller jobs or they, that type of thing, which I absolutely think is fantastic. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And a lot of it, to offset their, the Social Security and this, that, and the other. But, also when you retire, it's not all roses like a lot of guys think it is. Sometimes you retire and slow down and stop and everything. It's not good for you either. So by doing that, you also stay kind of engaged. Your mind still works and everything. You don't. I think once you start to really retire and don't do anything, I think the cognitive decline sets in, and you know what I mean. And also, I know someone that retired, and I asked him, what do you do? And then he goes, well, I go down to the union hall and I make breakfast for the guys in the morning, and we play bingo or something. Man, you shoot me in the head. Yeah, I'm not that I ain't doing that. You know what I mean? I'd rather work than doing that. So I don't think it's a bad idea that that's the way that a lot of guys go in their career, is they start slowing down, doing smaller jobs and what have you. And especially, I think there's a lot of opportunity for those guys in their career now, because you've got the knowledge, you've got all this phenomenal knowledge, and you can take these small repair jobs and do little things, or you know what I mean, and just take one room that you would normally knock out in a day. Let that be your week's job. That's not a bad way to go out.
It's amazing how many guys have told me that, oh yeah, my dad loves running the power drive.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
just power drives. He's in, and sometimes I think too, like, I think one of the things my grandfather might have missed a little bit was, we always had a big crew. You know what I mean? We always had, our crews were always, between 6 and 8 guys. And, you live with these guys, you travel with these guys, you're working alongside these guys, amazing amount of hours, because you only get that really 6 month time window, and you build up a little camaraderie with crews and guys on the crew, and you end up making lifelong friends too. And I think sometimes that's what some of the old timers miss too.
there's a lot of camaraderie involved in that, no doubt about it. And I think that goes a long way. Um, all right, and I think there's the second part to this show I wanted to talk about is that if you have somebody that mentored you, that taught you the industry, you know what I mean, helped you as you went along. Imagine you're out of the blue, somebody comes up to you that you mentored in the industry, you helped them along the way, and out of the blue, someone sends you a card or calls you to say thank you. Hey man, you know what? I was just thinking today about all the stuff that I learned from you that I put into use today. And out of the blue, I think that would be so heartfelt and so nice for an old, someone that mentored you to get that. And it don't even have to be, it could be like a distributor guy. There's a lot of distributor sales reps that are phenomenal at helping guys in this trade. You know what I mean? They have a lot of knowledge and experience too. They know the industry, and it could be just someone like that that's helped you along the way. How nice if you put yourself in that guy's shoes, that out of the blue, someone that you worked with and helped teach the trade to and everything, just sent you something and with a nice thank you note, and did something like that for you. Or actually, like to your point, just mention them on the show, and we'll say something about it. Might be a nice way to do it because men don't like to get lovey dovey, man. You know what I mean? I don't like saying, you know what I mean? That's tough sometimes to go call somebody, go, hey man, I just want to thank you, whatever. Sometimes that's sometimes that's not you. Uh, but if I put myself in a guy's shoes like that, maybe he was a journeyman carpenter that helped you along the way, and maybe he was a jerk. You know what I mean? Maybe you didn't even necessarily get along with him. We've all probably worked with guys like that. I don't know. You've talked about someone that used to work with your crew, that was an absolute maniac to work with, and you didn't get along with him. But you know what? You learned.
He taught me everything I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there were some definite a-holes that I've worked with through the years that I learned
Easy.
a ton. That I learned a ton from.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm sending them a card though. They're not going to get a card.
There's
Maybe
some
the guys who I like, I'll send a card to.
Yeah.
But the guys that I don't know.
There's definitely a couple categories there. Yeah. There's some that I would, some that I wouldn't. But I
Maybe
think
I'll send them a card, but I won't sign it.
yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Then you'll feel better.
Let
Let me ask you a question since we're on this subject.
Yeah.
How did Uncle Stan go? What happened to Uncle Stan?
I talked about that. He died of cancer.
So he worked up until the day that he got too sick, that kind of thing?
Yes, he pretty much did. And he slowed down, and he turned the business over to his son, and his son did a really great job with it, and still today he's a damn good floor man. But he got towards the end, he just slowed down and did less work and more bidding jobs. And by that time he had raised a great family and had a nice house and everything, but it was the end of his career, and shortly after that, and had cancer, and and passed away from that. So yeah.
I just don't think a lot of guys retire. Pete retired.
Pete did.
Pete retired. So it's funny that you wanted to do a show about this because nobody ever has fanfare or anything like that.
Oh, you mean he retired recently?
Well, about last year, last April.
Oh, okay, that's recent. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So he retired.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called up his kids and his parents and everything, and buddies of mine, and I said, hey, let's have a party. I just saw he's retiring,
Yeah.
Like the only retirement parties I think I've ever been to are for cops, cops that I knew, and cops seem to have, hey, you survived, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You made it. So we're going to have a little party. So we got a really nice state park. We rented a big pavilion, and we had food and music and his kids, and it was a great party,
Nice.
And yeah. But so I remember talking to him like, well, you're not going to sell your equipment, are you?
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at me, kind of sideways.
Why would I do that?
He goes, why am I selling? And actually he said, why am I selling our equipment?
Yeah.
I go, retiring and everything. He goes, I'm retired from the post office. He goes, I'm always going to do floors.
Oh,
and it was just a way that he said, what are you, out of your mind?
Yeah.
I'm always going to do floors.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So much for the retirement, but you talk to him, and it's like, I don't know, sometimes you talk to people and like with the office jobs and things like that, and they're looking forward to retirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They, those guys, they're counting the days.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know what, maybe they don't like their job and they don't get the satisfaction, but I think with floor guys, there's just a lot of satisfaction in finishing a job. The final coat looks great. I mean, it's a different feeling than, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, or, I'm not trying to trash anybody or what they do, but I do think that's why a lot of guys don't really retire from this too much is because there's a good sense of accomplishment. You feel good. But like we were just saying, I think they just slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Well, and to be honest, I mean, it's everybody's is different. I mean, some people probably by the time they get to the end of it, they've done so much and whatever, they're just done with it all and what have you. Maybe there's that, I mean, there's probably that too. But I don't know. And here's the thing: if somebody was your mentor, someone did teach you along the way. Um, I think there's a couple things. Have you ever helped somebody out and in the very end, feel like they didn't appreciate it, or you maybe even worse, that you got taken advantage of a little bit? You know what I mean? I think if someone did help you out, one of the best things you can do is you know, kind of take what they've given you and extrapolate on that. You know what I mean? And use that for your baseline and everything, and just try to get better and try to improve what you learn. I think you always the generation should try to get better than the generation before them. You know what I mean? That you were taught this, and then you take it to another level before you hand it off or you get done with it. And also to pay it forward, to pass it on to somebody else. And I think this industry is really good at that now. I think like we always say, it is kind of a brotherhood. And if somebody needs help, you see on the internet or whatever, someone's stuck on a certain situation, whatever, it seems like everybody's willing to help the person out. I think our industry wasn't good about that like 30 years ago, but I think it's kind of come full circle, and I think people are really pretty good about paying it forward. If I look at mentors I've had over the years that probably don't even know it, I think a lot of Jason Elquist with Black Hawk Floors probably doesn't realize how much he's taught me just by being around him and seeing different things. Mike Dittmer, Daniel Boone, Lenny Hall. I learned from what's the guy's name that passed away a long time ago? I can't remember the guy's name now.
Not my guy.
No, not enough. Not. I know you're thinking of. I wasn't around him as much. I learned some things from Dave Marzalek. I absolutely
Who's
did.
still alive.
Still alive, yeah.
Passed away. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very great, and I'll tell you what.
Nothing for me. Nothing. I taught you nothing.
Listen. I was going to get to that. I'm talking about on the floor.
Where's my letter? Where's my note?
Every day I give the gift to you. Yeah. Every week.
Every day. Every day.
So I'm grateful for every single one of them. Every one that I learned from, I'm grateful for. And one way or the other, I've either told them or I will tell them before I'm done. So, but pay it forward, man. Pay it forward to someone else. Be grateful for it, and I think gratitude is so important.
How about just the letters? Or I gotta stop saying letters, emails and texts and stuff that we get from training and doing the shows, that people will take the time and say, hey, show was cracking me up and everything, but I learned this. Or when I get somebody who's doing a job or something, and we help them out or something, and they send us a quick note like, thank you, I mean, this thing went great. I mean, how jacked up do we get when that happens? I mean, we're like schoolgirls, right? Trading notes. Look at this one. Look what we got here.
Now it looks like we just did this whole show to do that. For what do we? It's not about us. Believe me.
Yes, of course it's about us. It's about us 100%.
Shut up. So anyhow,
what I meant was when you were saying, drop a note to somebody.
No, I know what you mean.
It's not, don't think that it's a little thing, because you and I, it ain't about the money. You know what I mean? But boy, when somebody sends you something, a nice note or whatever, boy, that does mean a lot.
Well, and there's no greater satisfaction than seeing somebody that come up in the trades and see their progress. and to see that they've gotten better through their own. I'm not saying we have had anything to do with it or not, whatever, but just see a young kid start off in the trade, getting his first sander or whatever, and learning it, and then getting better, buying a van, then maybe see him buy another van, or you see him, you know what I mean, and now he's progressing and doing this type of work and what have you. That's very gratifying, and you want to pat the dude on the back and go, man, congrats, man, that's pretty cool. And some people surprise you. Never count anybody out. I tell you what, I never count anybody out. I remember a kid, a young guy, and he called with a lot of questions, like, I don't know, man, if this guy's getting it, man. And I kind of lost track of him. And like 7 years later, he's got 7 or 8 vans on the road. He's very successful. And you're like, son of a gun, man, good for him. He hung in there and he got it. And not all the green lights come on at the same time for everybody. You know what I mean? The path isn't always a straight linear path. I mean, a lot of times there's dips and valleys or whatever. Some people get it quicker than others. Some have easier paths than others. But by and large, if you hang in there and work at it and try to learn, and like we always say, if you have 20 years experience, or you just reliving that first year over 20 different times. You know what I mean? That you keep learning and try to get better than the day before. And I'll tell you, if I can say that I've one thing that I'll say about myself is that I know for a fact, and I don't know whatever key to success or whatever, but I will tell you this. I will tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, I think that has helped me beyond everything else. Every day I get up, I try to make this day better than the day before. I try to get better. I'm always trying to get better and always trying to learn in a way. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and there's no doubt about it, but I will work at the craft, and I will eventually get it and try to improve upon it and appreciate what I learn and keep going. So anyhow,
I do love the notes that you sent over here. The transitioning into retirement notes.
Yeah, and I didn't want to make this
thank God. Yeah. Right. Thank God we didn't do this, because anybody who would read these notes are like, all right, well, now I see why floor guys don't want to retire.
Yeah.
This is some downright depressing stuff.
That's why I'm not big on it, man. I work as long as you can, man, I think. And here's what I'll say about that. I think you have to enjoy the journey, because when you get to the end and then there's like, all right, there's nothing now. You know what I mean? Well, so all that to get to there, maybe the end isn't as good as you thought. So I'll tell you, one of the best episodes of my life is when we first got married and we lived in a 340 square foot apartment. Actually, it wasn't even an apartment. It was a house behind their regular house above a garage. And in fact, when the lady that owned the house would go downstairs and start her Volkswagen, the fumes would come up through the house, and the whole house would smell like exhaust. And it was 340 square feet. And when I look back, I mean, I had very little money. She was going to school, and I was just starting out. And but that was one of the best times of my life. And so enjoy the journey. So
you talk about enjoy the journey. You know what's weird is all how many people that I played softball with, hockey, went to school with, worked with, for that long. I graduated in 1980. It's amazing how many people I know
it's amazing
that are retiring.
It's amazing you graduated.
Oh, let me tell you. I wasn't even at the bottom of the class either. I was, I bet I beat out 20 or 30 kids.
Yeah, there's amazing that you said that the people your age that are retiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nuts. I mean, but
listen, one of the happiest guys
when you say enjoy the journey, man, it was fast.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fact.
I mean, holy mackerel. I mean, these are guys, like I said, I've known these guys all my life. Well, my wife retired. She retired.
Mm-hmm.
Just doesn't seem right.
when I some of the best, coolest, happiest dudes I know in my life are in their 70s, and one guy 84 years old still working. And the most really just energetic good guys, happy that that what they're doing and everything. And so I don't know, man. I don't know. I just thought we talked about
I
it.
got to read this 2 sentences though from the notes that you sent over. This is just cracking me up. Yeah, you're right. No way we could have done a show about how to retire. More to how to stay alive. Here's this. Even for people who choose to retire, saying goodbye to their career doesn't always bring happiness. Some feel anxious and saddened by the loss of routine and the direction in their lives. Plus, I like how you highlighted that too. Almost 1 in 3 retirees say they feel depressed.
So
that's it. That's me. You made up my mind. That's it.
Keep
I ain't
working.
going nowhere. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you see Bona dragging me out and I'm clawing my way, you gotta go, Rob.
Yeah.
No, ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I say, man.
Anxious and saddened
in
the direction of their lives.
Yeah.
Whew.
All right. All right. So anyhow, just to recap.
Everybody I know who's retired, my buddies, the best thing to happen to their golf game. They're all unbelievable golfers now.
Yeah, I'd rather dig a ditch than golf. I'm not that guy, man. I don't want to. I just doesn't do. That just do anything for me.
A lot of my buddies love golf, and man, it's funny, in the text chains and everything. They feel about golf in the same way you feel about fishing. They're into it.
I believe me, I get it. I mean, I totally get it. It's just not for me.
I figure you hit the Bass Tour once you retire.
No.
You'll mount up. No.
I'll fish for sure. I will not lack for things to do. I mean, but that's a long way down the road. Anyhow, all right. So anyhow, what we wanted to say basically, if for everybody, as this came about because of 40 under 40, and I really think that a really nod of respect to the guys that have been in the trade for a long time and maybe don't get the fanfare they deserve when they get out of the trade. Hey, if you want us to recognize somebody, shoot us their information, give us a little bit of background about them, and we'll mention them on the show. And the second thing is the mentoring thing. Maybe if someone has been a mentor to you over the years, maybe a carpenter you worked with, or a distributor guy behind the counter, or a sales guy, whatever. Maybe nice to give him who doesn't like an attaboy, man, a pat on the back, a thank you.
Drop him a card.
Some
nice handwritten card. Yeah.
Recognition. It's a tough job, man, no matter where you are in this industry. So nice to get back a little bit. All right, so there you go. This has been another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. Please stay tuned for another episode.